Okay, next topic is about translation. Okay, first of all, we need to understand translation and why do we need to go for translation. So there are two reasons for going of a translation. One is if you want to go for a consolidation, translation is mandatory, especially if your consolidated ledger currency and your functional currency ledger are different. Okay, first I'll explain you the significance of the translation. So like translation and consolidation are kind of an interrelated. For consolidation, in some cases, translation is required. So that's the reason why first I'll cover translation and then the consolidation. So what is translation? Go back to our group structure. So here we got three ledgers: Reliance INR ledger, Reliance USD ledger, Reliance Canada ledger. Under each of these ledger, we got a couple of legal entities and a couple of operating units and different company codes. Okay. Now Reliance Group is a company which is located in India. So head office is in India. Okay. Take an example of Reliance USD Ledger. Okay, Reliance USD Ledger. It's under Reliance USD Ledger there are two companies, Reliance Telecom and Reliance Oil and Gas, and these two are located in US. Okay, it is always possible that your Reliance Group company can say that no. Under Reliance USD Ledger, my functional currency is USD and all the transactions are converted into USD. But your Reliance Group company can say that I want to see the numbers in INR, which is my function. I mean, which is my main currency in, for the INR ledger. Okay, so Reliance headquarters sitting in India, they want to see all the numbers in INR currency. Obviously for Reliance INR ledger the functional currency is INR, then you can straight away run the reports and the data will be in INR. But whereas for the Reliance USD and Reliance Canada ledgers, the functional currency is USD and Canada respectively, there could be a requirement wherein you want all these numbers to be converted into the INR currency and then run the reports and provide those reports to Reliance Group. Okay, so because the Reliance Group, where the headquarters in India, want all the numbers to be in INR so that they can better appreciate and then you do a better what do you call management decision can be possible if all the numbers are in one currency. As you know, you can only add apples and apples. You cannot add apples and oranges. You cannot add say 1,000 rupees with say 100 USD unless until USD is also converted into INR. Okay, so that is the reason why we go for a translation. So for INR ledger is concerned, we in this scenario we do not require any kind of a translation. But whereas for the USD ledger, we want to run a translation so that USD ledger numbers are converted into INR. Similarly, for the Canadian ledger, we want translation to run so that the Canadian ledger numbers are converted into INR. So as far as the translation is concerned, I will take Reliance USD as an example. Okay, so I'll go to the Reliance USD ledger, maybe create one or two transactions so that there will be some balances for me to run the translation, and then I'll try to convert my USD numbers into INR and then show you what is the impact of translation. Okay, is that clear? The concept is clear.
Arvind, I'm sorry, I got disconnected since the time you started on translation, I think.
Okay, that's fine. I'll repeat once again.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so if you take your Reliance Group org structure as an example, under Reliance Group we got three ledgers: Reliance INR ledger, Reliance USD ledger, Reliance Canadian ledger. So Reliance Group, our headquarters is located in India. Okay, so obviously when the Reliance Group want to see the numbers of different countries, they want to see the numbers in INR currency, which is their main currency. So as far as the Reliance INR ledger is concerned, the functional currency is INR, so you need not do anything there. As far as the Reliance USD ledger is concerned and Reliance Canadian ledger is concerned, the numbers are in their respective functional currency. For Reliance USD ledger, the functional currency is USD, and for Reliance Canadian ledger, the functional currency is Canada. As you know that you can add only apples and apples, oranges and oranges. You cannot add apples and oranges. Okay, so that is the reason why the Reliance Group, if they want to see the numbers of different countries, they want to see the numbers of all the countries under INR. For INR ledger, everything is in functional currency of INR, no problem. For Reliance USD ledger, you need to run a program called translation, which will translate the numbers from USD ledger, whatever the numbers whatever is there in USD ledger in functional currency of USD, it will be converted into INR. Similarly, when you run your translation process under Canadian ledger, system will try to convert all the numbers under Canadian ledger where the functional currency is Canada into INR. Okay. And for converting of those things, there are a couple of steps. First, we need to ensure that the exchange rates are available in the system. So in this case, exchange rates are available between USD and INR. In this case, you need to ensure that the exchange rates are available between Canadian ledger and INR. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So two things. One is the exchange rates needs to be available, and the second thing is there is something called rules which are followed by the translation process. Okay. And also conversion rate types. So as far as the rules are concerned for translation process, as you know, when you are defining your accounts are divided into four categories: revenue, expenses, asset, liability, owner's equity. Assets, liabilities, revenue, expense, ownership equity. These two are called, bring it here. So these two are called P&L accounts. These three are called balance sheet accounts. Ideally, these three are called balance sheet accounts. Okay. And for a translation perspective, system uses something called period average rate for converting these numbers, that is your revenue and expenses numbers, into a different currency. It will use period average rate. Whereas for the asset and liabilities and owner's equity, there is some exception. I'll get into that later point in time. But in general, for the assets, liabilities, and owner's equity, system will use the period end rate. Okay. So what is this period end rate and period average rate? When you are defining in your ledger, there is something called period end rate and period average rate types which you would have specified. So get back to our ledger definition. As I said that we will be performing the translation for the USD and the Canadian ledger. We will take USD ledger as an example for the time being. So I will log into general ledger, super user, Reliance USD. As I said, I had completed the all the ledger related setups for the USD ledger. I had even created the responsibility for the general ledger's Reliance USD. This is the responsibility. Go to setup, financials, accounting setup manager, accounting setups. Bring up your ledger. Clicked on update accounting options, and under ledger option, that is under this Reliance USD ledger, this is called ledger options. Click on update. Click on next. Okay. So there is something called translation options. So this is where you specify what is your period end rate type and what is your period average rate type. As I said, for P&L account, you are using the period average rates. This is the period average rate. And what is your period average rate type? The period average rate type is, this is the period average rate type which we are using, period average 1. Okay. So that is my period average rate type. And as far as the period end is concerned, default period end rate type. What is my period end rate? Corporate. So what does these two mean? When you are doing a data entry, you remember that you are using the exchange rate type of corporate, and whatever the exchange rates available in the system for that particular date, system is defaulting those rates. Okay. So even for the period end and period average also, you need to specify what are the rate corresponding rate types. For period end, I have given the rate type as corporate. So that means as on the last day of the month, whatever the exchange rate available against or like under corporate rate type, system is going to pick up that particular exchange rate for converting the P&L accounts. So let us assume you are running this translation for September period. So as on 30th of September, the exchange rate between USD and INR is 60 rupees. Okay, and in the same daily rate screen, there is something under the exchange rate type, that is exchange rate type of period average. You also specify what is my average rate for the entire month. So 1 USD is equal to, the average rate could be say 63.5. Okay, so what law says is, I mean, this again translation is as per the accounting standards. So what law says is, convert your P&L account balances using period average rate. Convert your balance sheet account balances using period end rate. And there is something called historical rate also. There is one particular screen wherein you can specify the historical rate. Generally, you use historical rate only for the ownership equity. And if there is no historical rate, system will use the period end rate. Okay. So when you say historical rate, you always want the ownership equity accounts to be converted using that rate irrespective of running of translation for any period. For whether you run it for September or October, November or December, for any period, you always want to use that fixed exchange rate. You just want to use exchange rate of say 1 USD is equal to say 55. So if you enter that historical rate, then the historical rate is generally used only for the ownership equity. System will use that historical rate for the ownership equity. So, but for in our current discussion, let us assume that there is no historical rate. Then system will try to convert all these balance sheet account assets, liabilities, including ownership equity, using the period end rate. Whereas for the P&L account, it will try to convert the P&L accounts using the period average rate type of period average one. And for period average one, that's the rate type, we have given the value of 63.5. Now we'll get back into the system and we'll check whether there is a period rate, period end rate is already available. Period end rate is nothing but the corporate exchange rate as on the last day of the month. For the last day of the month, I think we have already entered that exchange rate of 1 USD is equal to 60 rupees. But for period average rate type, we did not enter any rate. So period average is nothing but the average rate of all the rates for that particular month. What you can do is in a normal live environment, what user does is, like, generally user get this daily exchange rate from a bank, and then at the end of the month he just do an average of all those rates. So that is like in this example, like 65 plus 64 plus 63 plus 66 plus so on for all the months divided by 30. So that will give him the average rate, and he's going to enter that average rate in the system. Okay, go to the same daily rate screen, setup, currencies, rates, daily. Okay, and as far as the period end rate is concerned, try to query if the rate is already available, 1 USD to INR, date of 30th of September, and rate type is corporate. It is available. Okay, and the period average, for the period average, the rate type is period average one, that is the rate type, and you need to enter this rate USD. I don't think so there is any rate average rate for using the period average one, so we will try to enter that. Even for the period average also, just use the date as the last date of the month. looks like there is a rate. Let me try to query that. F11, again F11, bring this up. Okay, there is a rate. Now we'll try to change this to 63.5, which is what we want. Okay. Now, if there are any balances under balance sheet accounts, that is assets or liabilities, it will be converted into USD using 60 rupees exchange rate. And if there are any revenue or expenses, it will be converted using the 63.5 exchange rate. Okay. Now I'll go to the USD ledger and try to create maybe one or two journal entries using, one journal entry using asset and one journal entry using the P&L account, and then run the trial translation, and let's see how system behaves. So whether the concept is clear.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Journal, enter, test journal, test USD journal 1, test USD balance sheet journal 1. So we will use any balance sheet account. So accounts receivable is one example. That's a balance sheet account. Oh, sorry. This is not the balance sheet. What do you call, this balancing segment is not valid. So what is the balancing segment which is valid for USD ledger?
03 and 04.
03 and 04. So we can use any one of these. Okay. So enter say 35,000. Oh, I think two journals are not required. I think one journal itself is required. So because in the one journal itself we are covering both asset account as well as the P&L account. Okay. Okay. Now we got one balance sheet account, which is accounts receivable account. So the entry whatever we have passed is accounts receivable debit. I think 35,000. Am I right? So this is in USD. Okay. Now let me double check whether it's in what's the amount. Yeah, this is the one which we passed. These are the entries which I passed earlier just for testing. Sorry, I think this is the one. Okay, let me check. Make a note of the account. Accounts receivable account is 1210, and what is my revenue account? 4504. Okay. Now try to run the translation process and check how system is going to convert this using the exchange rate. So ideally in this case 35,000 should get converted into INR using 60 rupees exchange rate, and revenue account 4504 should get converted using exchange rate of 63.5. Okay. Currency translation. What is the target currency? So Reliance USD ledger, you want to translate it into a different currency. What is the target currency? You want to convert it into INR. So enter the target currency here, INR. Okay. And what is the period? September 17. Click on translate. So whenever you try to do a translation, for each translation, system is going to create one something called translated ledger. If you observe here, when we went to this particular screen, when I said INR and tab, automatically system has defaulted the reporting currency as Reliance USD ledger within bracket INR, which is nothing but this is the translated currency or translated ledger. Automatically, as soon as you enter the currency, internally it has created one translated ledger called Reliance USD ledger within bracket INR. So that means this is a translated ledger wherein it has converted from USD to INR. And once the translation process is completed, okay, translation process completed, we can check the impact of the calculations either running a trial balance report, or you can even go to the account inquiry. We can check directly from the account inquiry. Inquiry, account. We want, when you click on drop down, you should be able to observe then automatically earlier it was not coming up this Reliance USD ledger INR. Now you should be able to see automatically Reliance USD ledger INR is coming up, because for each translation system is trying to create one translated ledger. So pick up this translated ledger, click on OK, and for September, what is our account code combination? 01, and account is 1210. Click on show balance. INR. Show up.
Hey, Arvind, 03. You should give 03.
Ah, you are right. You are right. Again, you are awake. Good catch. Yeah. Yeah. You can see 2.1. I think is 2.1 million. Let us check. Like, so this 35,000 multiply by 60. Okay. Okay. So you can see 2.1 million or 21 lakhs. So this 35,000 is converted using exchange rate of 60. Similarly, for the revenue account, check what system has used. So what is our revenue account? 4504. Yeah, hang on, it is using the same exchange rate. What is the account which have used? 4504, and 4504 should be a revenue account. So you can go to the segment values and check what exactly is the account type for that. 4504 lease rent. It is a revenue account. Okay. So ideally for the revenue account, it should use the period average based on our current setup. So what did we say? Default period average rate type is period average. Okay. But still it has used that. Okay, I want to just check something. This is for the revaluation. Sorry, I need to look for translation. Right? GL translation, revenue expense translation rule. So that's fine. We can put YTD or PTD. That's okay. Okay, I will check the reason for that. Ideally, it should use the average. Okay, Anyhow, I think we are running short of time, so we'll continue this translation, consolidation, and other setups in the next session. Okay. Any other questions?
Okay. Hey, Arvind, one question. When you're doing this translation, right, like as you mentioned in the USD and the target currency, when you choose it as INR, and the system is creating the ledger,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
The ledger, that whatever that new ledger it is created, can I go and query in the ledger screen?
Okay, so there's a tricky thing to that. Like when I say ledger, I'll show you like how system has created that particular ledger. You need to query for Reliance USD ledger. Click on update accounting options. There is something called reporting currencies. Click on that. Okay. This is the reporting ledger. This is only a reporting ledger, not a kind of a real ledger. This is only for reporting purpose. So that is the reason why you cannot directly, like in a data entry screen, you cannot pick up this. This is only for a reporting purpose. So that is the reason why it is called reporting ledger.
So can I say reporting ledgers will be created only during the translation?
Yes, there are two options. Reporting ledgers will be created only during translation, or you can directly click on add reporting currency and you can even add them. I mean, it's no point in creating in them manually, because system will take care of creating that automatically whenever you start running a translation for each currency. Now I have ran the translation for INR. If I go to that particular screen, just for argument's sake, I'll try to run a translation for say one more currency, say maybe just say GBP or something like that. Okay, then automatically once you come to this particular screen, then you will be able to see one more translated ledger with a GBP road. So currency will be GBP and the reporting currency name will be Reliance USD ledger within bracket GBP.
Okay, even you cannot able to enter journal also using this. This is just an entry given by the system itself. Right?
Exactly. The reason why system has done this is like only once this is done, okay, or like only one system is creating this particular what you call reporting ledger, it is possible for the system to bring up that particular ledger in the drop down whenever you go to account inquiry.
Yeah,
Okay, and
yeah.
also you can run
Okay.
something called trial balance report. When you run your trial balance report, when you click on the drop down, you'll be able to see both the original primary ledger and the translated ledger. Okay, this was not the functionality in 11i. Okay,
Oh, in 11 we don't have.
yeah, we
So
don't have
can
such kind of function in
we
11i.
cannot create journal? We
Sorry,
cannot create journal. We cannot create journal with this new ledger.
no. As I said that it is just
Okay.
a reporting purpose. You just want to convert your numbers into another currency. You don't want to if you want to again create a journals or something like that, then do not go for the reporting currency. Then you need to create something called secondary ledger.
Okay.
Wherein if
Okay.
you want
Got
to
it.
do some kind of an additional adjustments apart from whatever is there in your primary ledger, then you need to go for secondary ledger. But here our requirement is to
Okay.
just convert our numbers from USD into INR. Okay.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, guys. We'll proceed in our next class tomorrow. Okay.
Okay. We are
We'll
going
continue
to
with
wrap
the.
up GL by tomorrow.
Sorry.
We'll going to. Is it going to happen by tomorrow? We'll wrap up GL.
Yeah, that's what my plan is, because we have got a lot of other topics to be covered. We are spending a lot of time here, so irrespective of whether it's 11 or 11:30 or 12, whatever is there. So tomorrow our target should be I should be able to complete all these topics, including these two open topics. Okay, and then from next week onwards, I mean you'll have 1 week time to practice these things, and next week onwards we can start with the accounts payable. Okay.